Please call to order regular city council meeting for October 3rd, 2022. Roll call, please. Meeting is called to order. Gold Hill City Council regular meeting, October 3rd, 2022. Roll call.
Council Wrigley,
Here.
Council Palmer,
Here.
Councilor Newstead,
Here.
Mayor Studebaker,
Here.
Councilor Wilson.
Here.
Councilor Brashad.
Here. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Any announcements, correspondence, awards, proclamation? Public input. We have to see good turnout here. Who do we have in the queue? And who's on our sign-in sheet? I also have what? Sure, yes.
Joe? Sure.
Golden Valley Sewer Services has the track record of managing waste. At this point, asking the men.
Minimum. Is that the minimum?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, it's your comment.
Q. Okay.
Want to hear
No, thank you, you're finished.
Q, you're up. And on deck.
After you.
After you.
Not hearing. Hold it close. Thank you. Bart, please. And on deck.
John Brooklyn?
Any comments I have to make or suggestions what I have in front of me here is the last extension of the amendment code signed by the legislature on December 5th, This gave the city on September 13th, 2020, to revise and extend the deadline for submitting pre-design reports for improvements to the collection system. Again, the city failed to get either the pre-design report or file from extension by the September 13th deadline. Turned it over to enforcement division. Ran into Mayor Studebaker in April of this year on the street. I asked him, what's going on with this water? His reply, oh, I don't know. Hardly the spatial awareness we expect from our elected. It wasn't until I personally called John Gaskell, July 14th, that anyone at City Hall was aware of that. Although the then city manager claimed the council was notified to approve it. As of today's date, 389 days have passed. We have now approved $100,500 potential fund. It appears DEQ wants to start collecting on that now. More responsibility. What's the old saying? They get the government they deserve, well, we don't deserve this. This is the single most costly infrastructure project the city has faced in the last 40 years, and it's going to impact the city for the next 40 years. There is zero transparency here. Not one thing has ever been posted on the city website alerting citizens of this critical decision.
Mark, we're not hearing you.
Marvin. Lights go off.
There is zero transparency here. Not anything has ever been posted on the city website alerting citizens of this critical decision and the likelihood of $175 monthly surveys. Posting council meeting agendas at a grocery store instead of on the city website. Where are we? May 1960? Council decision to build and operate a wastewater treatment plant was made in a vacuum under the cover of darkness and both black and the majority public opinion presented at council meetings in favor of the pipeline and overseas annexation. The council majority continues to regurgitate failed talking points that the pipeline can't be built, and this information has been refuted by RVSS manager Carl Tappert multiple times. Did you know that annexation means going citizens will be able to see RVSS budget committee or run a position on the board of directors? You didn't know that because you didn't ask. The council needs to rescind the decision to build a treatment plant, take a step back, and request a comprehensive fact sheet from RVS outlining the annexation benefits to the city and the authority to construct the pipeline. Regarding sewer rates in Grand Hill, section 13.16.60 B10 of the City of Grand Hill Sewer Ordinance states, and I quote, to generate sufficient revenue to the total operation and maintenance costs necessary to the proper operation and maintenance, including the payment of the treatment works. As part of this treatment, the outfall pipe extension of the road river was supposed to have been completed on June 30, 2014, and was never done. If you build a treatment plant, who's going to give the city money for a project that should have been completed 8 years ago with city funds? The engineer's 2019 cost estimate, $312,000. The pipeline means no outfall extension required. The majority of the council thinks RVSS is taking us to the clean and what we're paying to operate and maintain the treatment plant collection system. I want to remind that we've had sewer bills in excess of $50 a month long before RVSS is subcontract operations, and look where it's gotten us. The council's intent is to ignore the true cost of operating a small municipal wastewater treatment plant and collection system. Removing RVSS as the contract operator next June 1st, replacing them with someone who likely won't have the standalone equipment required to repair and maintain the collection system. press for answers to who will maintain the collection system, they'll say, oh, we'll find someone, until they can't. While WSS has managed to keep the rest of the treatment plan in compliance with this discharge permit, what is the answer going to do if your contract operator has trouble getting feet on the ground and renewing that permit? DEQ has indicated that any future permit violations will trigger severe penalties. Who will be willing to break out your checks and pay the fines? The flawed decision to construct and run a wastewater plant is a direct return back down the federal road of object failure we just traveled. It's preliminary, but every period, I have 2 more sentences, let me finish. It's preliminary, the more you peel, the more it smells. It's an addict refusing to have a problem. It's a figure who hasn't figured out they shouldn't touch a hot stove. The council wants to keep the wastewater plant, yet you can't even repair the crumbling roof outside the front doors of this building.
Next up.
Kind of use it down more than a couple of years. I think, the highest water bill will go Jackson County. Really, it's about the all the outcome costs, making some decisions, breakfast is not doing it. But this is the goal that we be a part of the decision. It's not yours. We're the one that paid it. Most of our water will come. Whether or not we or annexing the RDS we want to expand our town for looking at the future. In my opinion, the city is not by the project installing the facility project. That's I hope. And we have annexing the RDSS. So it is not giving us anything to face on. Except for the city. Last thing I have to address is you are elected officials. I have seen far council meetings. You elected professionals. Put things out. Put together and all. Don't put it the word. Put things out.
I know what a difficult seat that is to have. I've had it myself. So you guys are in a tough pickle here, but we're in all this thing together. I'm going to encourage you guys to. I'm going to encourage you guys to or town hall meetings for public input. The first thing I talk to is lack of transparency in all this. Get fair updated numbers for the pipeline and the wastewater facility. Voting annexation to Red sewer systems for both alternatives on May 16, 2023. Many people are favor of the pipeline with annexation to RVSS because operation and maintenance is the big one. I compare it to
driving a car versus taking the bus. The car, gas, tires, depreciation, turns, and you gotta wash it. When a bus, you can take it, and just hop on it and take off. That's the pipeline. Personnel, again, we don't have a bus history of hiring personnel, no offense on them. I think we're 7 managers and 6 years. Plans at an airport are a class 4 operator, which right now is at 70 grand a year, with benefits of probably $80,000. The same, if you find somebody around that point. Still being under consideration, we pay $3 a month to maintain our standards. It's only available suitable a month. With 570 connections, that's $20,000 a year. We've been received citizens right from the house and truck up into Cody at 7 with a $500,000 dock truck with 600 gig of available storm drains. Only 100 to rebuild all the storm drains, but they get filled up and they bake in the summer and they're useless after that. It would take about 125 years just to pay for that truck. So you can see that regional roads will not come in this future. We've been assessed for ways to maintain a system and we disappear $2.1 million on. That's another benefit. As an option, we put the pressure of the station before the values of right here, really the same.
Marvin, anyone in the queue? Okay. Thank you for that. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I have one comment was submitted to me via email. They couldn't be here tonight, so she asked me to read it. This is from Brittany Wentowski, who lives on 2nd Avenue. She said, "It is unethical to expect people who get water in Gold Hill to pay for a new sewage system when there is a more economical way to fix the problem. It is not the citizens' fault for the mistakes made by the management of the city. We already pay more for our water sewer bill than any other town in Southern Oregon. It is an insult to think that it is okay to charge us more money than we already pay, especially during a time when financial hardships are past. This is why I think Hill should connect to Rogue Valley Sewer Services." Thank you. Britt Wentowski on 2nd Avenue.
Okay. Number 7, action items. We have 3 action items. 7.1, Councilor Bishop, liaison of substance.
You all have a handout.
Get on the website.
So 2 weeks ago at the September 19th meeting, liaison city to the so charged with that task, I tried to gather as much information as I could look at where we've been with the DEQ. We are with the DEQ now, what we have to do going forward. So I'm so sorry, I forgot to hold the mic. Okay, I guess I'll start over. Should I start over? Can you hear me now?
With an executive summary.
I'm going to start over because it's in my head that way. I can't just do it that way. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, September 19th, city council meeting, I was appointed the DEQ liaison from the city to the DEQ. In that amount of time, I have tried to gather as much information as I could to figure out where we've been with the DEQ, where we are with the DEQ, and what we need to do going forward to be compliant with the DEQ. So the 5 or 6 page spreadsheet here that I have shared with city council and the mayor, and will be on the website at some point, is my efforts toward that. I apologize for the many typos in it. I had a very limited amount of time to get a lot of information together and organize it. So, and then trying quickly to get it so that it could be included with the agenda. So forgive me for that. So I'm just, this spreadsheet summarizes it. I'm going to hit the high points. Starting with December 28th of 2012, the original mutual agreement and order, which is called the MAO, was issued to the city by DEQ. This was in response to the fact that in the 12 months previous to December of 2012, the city had 20 permit violations with the plant. Significant violations, some so the original MAO came up with I believe 12 stipulations. One was to calibrate the effluent meter. You would think that would be pretty routine, that you wouldn't need the MAO or the DEQ to issue an MAO to tell you to calibrate your meter. Also submit a draft laboratory quality analysis, quality control program, didn't have a quality control program, didn't have a draft written emergency response notification. All those things were major deficits. So those were some of the issues. They also at that time ordered us to issue a contract with engineers to come up with a wastewater facilities planning document. Not going to read all of that, but they also wanted to submit a document evaluating the current conditions of the wastewater collection system, including TV inspection, smoke testing, and flow monitoring studies. We were also dumping sludge into the secondary processing unit. They ordered us to stop doing that, clean the processing unit, and fix all of that. Then they ordered us to, once we got the wastewater facilities plan, they wanted us to choose a one of the options from the wastewater facilities plan and submit a draft pre-design report for that option. And that was all issued in 2012. If you look at the current MAO, that's still the same requirement. So in 10 years, we have not complied with the simple requirement of giving them a draft pre-design report. The MAO was amended for the first time of 6 times on July of 2013. This is when they added the requirement to extend the outfall from the plant into the main channel of the river, because right now it's in an eddy, and the effluent that the discharge from the plant is now circling around in an eddy instead of being dispersed into the main flow of the river. We're also supposed to put a single port diffuser on the end of that. This project has never been initiated by the city. That was ordered in 2013. They also wanted a document waste. At that point, they wanted a document showing an assessment of the wastewater collection system. That's the 7 miles of sewer mains that feed from our houses into the plant. they wanted a flow monitoring study. Okay, and then the MAO was amended again in June, second amendment of June of 2014. Again, they wanted an assessment of the collection system. They wanted they added a wet weather flow monitoring study. What that means is so our collection system, that's the sewer mains that collect from our houses to the plant, are very leaky. Water goes in and out of them. And if we were to have a very wet storm, groundwater would leak into the sewer mains, overpower the plant, and discharge sewage into the river. That would be a big problem. I don't believe that weather flow monitoring study, I could not find any documentation that's ever been initiated either. Then the amendment was, the MA was amended again in 2015, the third amendment again, wanting information about the collection system, wanted wet weather flow monitoring study. That was done. The MAO was extended for the fourth time in July of 2016. Again, looking at the collection system, wanting us to complete high priority collection system improvements. I believe that some of that was the $3 million project that Gus meant, $2 million project. So some of that was done. Okay, and then on July of 2017, it was amended again, the MAO, and they wanted documentation that all inflow sources into the collection system have been removed. I'm not sure that that's been done. I can't find any documentation for that. They still want the facilities plan, which they've been asking for at this point for 5 years, asked for originally in 2017. In the Fifth Amendment, they also extended the MAO requirements that would require the city to be reporting to DEQ for a year after building any new plants. The requirement is that after we build a new plant, if we did choose to build a new plant, we would have to submit documentation of performance testing after the first 12 months of completing the plant. So MAO now extends out to the future to at least a year after any new plant that would be built. Also, at that point in 2017, this is not on the spreadsheet. 2017 is the year that the city entered into a 5-year agreement with RVSS for $360,000 a year to manage the plant and the collection system. On December of 2020, the MAO was amended for the 6th time. The single requirement at that time was to submit a pre-design report for improvements to the collection system and the treatment plant. That could be a new plant, or it could be the RVSS. When 1 year went by, so that was, amendment was December of 2020, the 6th amendment. The date for being compliant with that was September 13th of 2021. The city was not compliant with the terms of the 6th amendment. And at that time, the city was turned over to the DEQ Office of Compliance and Enforcement, placing us in that position of being liable for fines of up to $500 a day. In December of 2021, the city submitted a tech memo from the engineers Anderson Perry with a proposal to rehabilitate the plant, not build a new plant, but rehabilitate the current plant. That did not meet the terms of the MAO, and the DEQ did not even respond to it. In July of 22, the city extended the 5-year agreement with SS to manage the plant and the collection system. We extended that agreement for 1 more year, and RVSS at that point added the requirement that the city would put to a citizen's vote whether or not to annex to RVSS. On 9/6 of this year, about a month ago, the City Council voted 4-1 to build a new wastewater treatment plant of an unknown type. This motion did not account for any of the improvements and maintenance of the collection system. The sludge truck placement, it doesn't address that. It doesn't address the outfall extension, which has never been initiated, and which also would have to happen even if we built a new plant. On September 22nd of this year, the DEQ issued a certified letter from the Office of Compliance and Enforcement demanding a $6,000 fine for the city's year-long non-compliance amendment number 6 of the MOA. Going forward, we need to comply with the MOA. I mean, they're not going to stop fining us. We need to stop playing games with the DEQ and come up with a decision either to build a new plant that's compliant or to annex to RVSS and go the pipeline route.
Questions?
Sub 2, replacement wastewater treatment facility decision, authorization for city manager to initiate pre-design process.
Continuation, I'll start with saying that standing agenda item, and we probably will move that in future meetings to have it under reports from peers, but because it was the other two action items, we put it in as an item when there actually is no action to be taken, just for continuity of the conversation. So tonight's agenda item is a creation for a minimum amount. Some discussion, but ultimately make a decision due to some concerns about the wording on the agenda. So this agenda item tonight is to actually review, deliberate, and make a decision on the authorization of the city manager to start the pre-design process for a particular treatment type. Decision on. So it is limited to, at least the intention of the agenda item is limited to going through the review of the alternative options that our city engineer put together. Is available on Zoom call to go over, answer any questions about those alternatives, and select one of those alternatives to move forward on.
You've spoken to city manager Dan Scalise on this. Engineer, sorry.
I did have a phone conversation with him at the end of last week.
Could you summarize your executive summary on what his thoughts were?
It's probably best to just have a conversation from Dan if he's willing on and discuss it. I'm going to catch up, obviously, on all of this information. But the materials in the packet, I think it's the same document that was in your council materials from the previous meeting. Has some kind of a snapshot of some cost estimates for the 5 alternatives, and then on the flip side has what is labeled non-monetary factors, so kind of a pros and cons for each of those 5 options. And I did talk with Dan, and he's willing to either answer questions or kind of give an overview if you'd like that first, or just get into questions. I wasn't sure where you left off and what your preference was.
Dan, would you give us an overview of your findings, and then you can take questions?
Yes, can everybody hear me? I have a very difficult time hearing Adam, so I have to apologize. There's only a couple folks I can actually hear. Yeah, so the fact sheet that I developed, I do have to apologize on that. There are some errors, and I know you're trying to make a decision that doesn't make it easy, so that's my fault. On the table for the numbers, I have to apologize. Those aren't quite correct. The rest of that fact sheet is correct. It's mainly a dissemination of information from the facility plan, trying to put it together in a way that's a little easier to understand. I'll try to summarize though. Basically, from a monetary standpoint, at a planning level, the construction costs are pretty similar, within 10%. So they're quite similar. From an operation and maintenance standpoint, they're also quite similar, a 15% difference from the lowest alternative from an operation and maintenance standpoint. And that's the MBR alternative. So it's the lowest from an operation and maintenance standpoint. Again, from a monetary standpoint, I think the big takeaway is it's more difficult to fund your O&M from an annual standpoint. That's all on your ratepayers. At this point in time, it's easier to secure grants, long-term funding for capital costs. And so again, based on a planning level stage, with where our capital costs are, focus more on O&M, long-term O&M, because I think that's what matters. Okay. From non-monetary standpoints, this decision gets more difficult for council members, and I want to express that to you guys. I've said this a number of times. It's a difficult decision to make just because of these non-monetary factors. They're just not as clear. So, weighing going with RDSS versus securing your own long-term certified operators, these are difficult questions to answer. Those are the main takeaways that I'd like to convey. Adam, is there anything else that I didn't touch on that we talked about?
Perhaps that is to have just stand by for maybe Q&A from Mayor and Council if they have any questions prior to getting into any motions. Thanks.
Any questions? So Dan, just taking a look at the bottom line.
Taking a look at the bottom line, 20-year net present value totals. The MBR looks like it's the most expensive, and the other are 3, 5, 7, and 11% within. Plus or minus from that. You're relatively comfortable using 11% inflation adjustment, that these are pretty close numbers?
I'm sorry, Mayor. I couldn't hear that. It's too muffled.
Can you hear me now?
It's a little better.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So
We have 5 options. The last one lists the MBR came in at 12.66 millions. The other 4 are within 3, 5, 7, and 11%. How comfortable are you with those numbers, that those are believable and you use an 11% inflation adjustment?
I have to apologize. It's a very difficult question to answer at this point in time. Just with the way the construction industry is right now, it's extremely difficult to estimate costs. I would pay more attention to the cost differences than I would pay attention to the exact numbers. I hope that helps you make a decision. I know that's not the answer you were looking for, but again, just with the industry the way it is, it's extremely difficult to estimate costs right now.
Okay, so assuming that there's some differences in the inflation rate, would they all be affected the same rate, so that regardless of the absolute number, are they all going to continue, even if inflation went from 11 to 22%? They would all be impacted by the same percentage, do you think?
I think that's a fair assumption.
So these are reasonable numbers to work from.
I would agree, yes.
Mayor, what I would like to know is, we haven't heard from Dan about his opinion on the pipeline versus a new facility? What does he feel as an engineer is the best choice?
Yeah, so I can
Did you hear that okay, Dan?
Yes, that is something that Adam and I discussed last week, and I will summarize our discussion. So on that pipeline alternative, my opinion is that the pipeline probably hasn't been given quite the detail that it needs to be compared kind of fairly to a new plant. What I mean by that is a new plant is kind of a black box, right? So new MBR versus a new SBR, right? Take the black box out, put the black box back in, right? But the pipeline is a little more detail and intricacies you got to work through. So property acquisition, potentially easements, right away, permitting, those kinds of things. All very doable. They're things to work through. It's not overcomable, right? So things we do all the time. We do long pipelines, we work through it. It's just that takes a lot of work to get through because it's kind of a custom alternative versus a black box. Like you can go put a new treatment plant on, you can go put a new SBR in or MBR, right? So that's my opinion of the alternative pipeline. It's not that it's a bad alternative. And this gets back to kind of the non-monetary factors. I mean, they are monetary, but they're a little more difficult to make a decision on, right? And that's, do you go with somebody where you don't have to worry about it, right? Going to RVSS, you don't have to worry about the future other than you are kind of hitching your horse to someone else's car. So those are hard decisions to make, and I can't make those for you. But I did want to touch on that factor that the pipeline needs more work, in my opinion, to really go through some of the details of what's it really going to look like in that right away and those kinds of things. I could not hear that.
No? Dan, can you hear me?
I can kind of hear that, yes.
Okay, so you just said the pipeline needs more work. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so it needs more work, in my opinion, to become a little more of a fair comparison with a treatment plant replacement alternative. Because a treatment plant
So
replacement. Go ahead.
So you're saying there needs to be more work done to compare the pipeline to treatment plant. Is that what you meant?
To have a little more of a fair comparison, if that makes sense. Because like I said, like an MBR and SBR new treatment plant, it's kind of a black box. You replace black box with black box. Whereas a pipeline, there's just a lot more detail that goes into that work. It's not that it's a bad alternative. It's just, I don't know exactly where this pipeline's going, exactly how you're going to cross creeks and things like that. Not that crossing a creek is a big deal. We do it all the time with utilities. It's just those details would need to be figured out. There's a lot more details associated with the pipeline, in my opinion.
Thank you.
And are those details that we can know? I mean, how long and what would it cost us to do a study to determine same level of confidence, what the cost is and the time?
It's kind of a loaded question at this point.
I believe I think that we had asked for that previously and we were told it was unknowable.
No, I don't think it's unknowable. I just think it takes a bit more work to work through. And I can't tell you that over right now. It's something we'd have to work out.
Is that something that your engineering outfit could do?
Certainly.
May I? I think that is already all in the master plan. It's option 4. The pipeline is option 4 in the master plan. These numbers right here for alternative 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, all you have to do is add them there. And these numbers were pretty much all taken from the master plan and just inflation adjusted. So it shouldn't be hard to add another column to a document like this to get the numbers on the pipeline. Those numbers are already all in the master plan, just like the numbers for all of these other options are already in the master plan.
Hey, Dan, I want to say something too. You were talking about complications with the construction of the pipeline having to do with easements, right-of-ways, and properties. And my assumption is that private properties would have to be purchased and the homeowners would have to be agreeable for the pipeline to move through so they would have a pump station on their property. And how long does that normally take if the property owners are not agreeable to that going through their land?
Well, it's a good question. That's a good point. I don't know if it's going to go on private property or not.
There's,
And it just all depends. It can vary. There's willing landowners or not. It's a very difficult question to answer.
Have you encountered that before, where a property owner is disagreeable to a pump station going through their property and unwilling to move off their own property?
Yes, and we try to just avoid that to begin with, if it's possible, displacing people like that.
Thank you.
I believe that Carl Tappert has already been to these meetings and already explained that the pipeline will go in the right of way up Blackwell Hill. There are no easement problems. We're not going to have to ask anybody to move off their property. It's all in the easements. It's already in the master plan. Carl Tappert already came here and told us that.
Is that your understanding, Dan?
I would believe that if that's what Carl said, yes. I just don't know enough about it.
So the person that knows about this is Carl Tappert of RVSS, and I asked to have him come to a meeting and explain this, and I was told that we couldn't do that. So in the times that he has been here, he's already said that easements are not a problem. And if you want to ask these questions about the pipeline, you should be asking Carl Tappert the questions, not Dan Scalise.
Well, with regard to that, Councilwoman, Dan Scalise is our engineer. He is the person that we would contract to the study and provide us estimates as he's done with this. So he would certainly take input from Carl, but the engineer is paid to be our engineer for a reason. He is our disinterested third party who evaluates, provides his professional input, and helps us make reasonable decisions.
And he just said he doesn't know the answer to the question.
Right. We're asking him the same question that I asked months ago, and Carl basically said he didn't have the answer because it was a really complicated question.
And when we went to go and visit the site up at Shady Cove and met with Carl Tappert, he could not give us sound figures when we continued to ask for it. So
I think a site visit is the time to ask for figures.
it's been asked in this meeting too.
Risk to coming in without having that information. What I'm kind of hearing and what Dan talked with is, I think some of the issue is the master plan level comparisons are probably pretty easily put together. What is maybe different in a different conversation, or is the next level conversation, is how that would actually be designed, because some pre-design or some preliminary study into what it would actually take to do that, modifying the master plan to today's numbers, and then also addressing, I think some of the things were brought up by others, is ensuring that we're getting as close to apples as you can. The overall piece, the vehicle, and again, I don't know where they fall in all the ledger, but that I think is part of this conversation. Is now council's already made a decision to move forward on a new plant, but in hearing this conversation, somebody coming in, I would say that's part of the issue, and having Dan pick out a number, coordinating with RVSS to develop that number is, and whatever complexities the other components of right of way versus if it has to be out of the right of way or easements, all of those issues could be done. I think you have to draft up scope of services and request Dan to do that on the city's behalf, coordinating his work with RVSS to make that happen. I don't know if that's the direction council wants to go, especially, with a vote of already selecting a new plant. But I just want to throw that in there. That I think that's some of the issue that would need to be done, and it's able to be done with the people we can secure.
Council, what is your thoughts on modifying this to include data from the master plan, working with Dan's engineering firm? It's going to cost some money. Dan, you can't give us a ballpark guesstimate as to what a study of this anticipated scope would look like. I mean, is it $10,000? Is it $50,000?
So I do want to clarify one thing. So I was asked a while back, I think, to do what you're asking me to do now, which is kind of compare some new data on the pipeline, work with RVSS, bring together that data and just kind of bring it up to date, make sure we're using the right numbers. I provided a proposal back to city manager, and I was told not to move forward at that time. So I don't know if you're asking me to do that same thing now again.
A $10,000 study is one thing. A $20,000, that's pretty tough for us. So I'm hoping to get a little bit of clarity.
Yeah, what I just described, I believe the number I gave the city manager was $5,000 to do that effort.
Council, talk to me.
I would like to make a motion that we do what we've just been talking about comparing pipeline prices to these other options. And Dan, do that for $5,000. I think that's money well spent.
So let me just clarify. So you're making a motion that we contract Dan's engineering outfit to do a study estimating the cost of the pipeline format using the same criteria as this study?
Yes.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any other conversation?
Yes, I'd like to, as far as second it goes, I would second that as well, but I'd also like to know about the easement situation and any other detail that would get involved building that pipeline.
And that would be inviting Carl Tapper to come and answer those questions for us.
As well as everybody that's from Jackson County, the Klingon Empire, the DQ, anybody that's got a say in this state. I don't know who else would have a say in this.
Again, we utilize a city engineer for these sorts of things. So anyone that he needs to provide inputs, including Carl, he'll have his list and he'll contact him to get the information. Again, engineer understands the language and all of the net present values of things, the rates of inflation. There's a whole lot of stuff that a layman, we don't understand. So let's leave it to the pros and we'll get Mark, you can touch base with Carl and tell him that if this passes, that he would expect a call from Dan Scalise to provide. Okay.
All I ever asked
Okay. Thank you for that input. It's taken into consideration.
With Dan and I think I'll be meeting with Carl tomorrow as well, so I can communicate the council's desire to to evaluate that.
So it's been moved and seconded. Roll.
Okay,
Yes.
Wilson? Sorry. Oh, excuse me. Pass. Yes, Newstead? No. Yes. Wrigley? No.
Motion fails 3-2 count. Action item 7.3, council direction to city manager to address DEQ.
I would like to make a motion that we continue to move on with building the new CAS plant. We've already voted on the new plants, so now we just needed to decide which new plants. And I am making a motion that is the new CAS. It should all activate itself.
Alternative 7. Moved, is there a second? For Janice, motion to move ahead with alternative number 7. It's been moved and seconded, conversation?
I'd like to know why you're proposing the CAS over the other options.
I have done homework and that is the decision I have made.
I would like to know a little more detail about what. Very interesting. Thank you.
I've talked to level 4 operators, and that's what they recommended.
Why?
It's a new facility, less maintenance.
I would say that under environmental impact, so energy use is consideration, which it should be. We see what's happening in Europe and worldwide in terms of AI. Minimal energy use and waste production is associated with number 7. One that I like is MBR, and it's got the higher energy use with possible effluent reclamation. So again, with energy costs going up, we could really put ourselves into the situation. So a plus for alternative 7 is the minimal energy use. It's cheap that way, so downstream costs for the next 40 years would be lower. Any other thoughts? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Wilson? Newstead? Yes. Ron? Yes. Wrigley?
Ashley, motion carries 4-1. So you are directed, authorized to initiate the pre-design process. Motion, action item 7.3, providing the direction to city manager to address the DEQ wastewater demand notice. Would you please start out with a summation of what the DEQ demand notice is about?
Sure. And this relates, I think, a little bit to Councilor Bichott's prior summary Amazon report. It is in your packet. Received just a few days before I arrived, September 22nd, which is the process, the results of the final orders on demand notice for a fee, relations penalty fee of $6 that is due. So procedurally, DEQ provides anybody who is being hit with a penalty to file to appeal the decision.
There's a 20-day period. So the reason we threw it on here, had to throw it on real quick, is that 20-day period comes up on the 12th, which is prior to the next council meeting. So wanted to put it in front of you this evening to give me direction about whether you want to make a file an appeal request, which we have to do by the 12th, as I said, or pay the fine. I think there are, I've talked with Dan a little bit about this and a few others, that I think there is some basis by which to appeal. That doesn't mean it's a successful appeal. At the end result of an appeal, it still could end up being a fine. But I need council direction about your desire to file and go through some staff time to generate an appeal petition.
I think an appeal is good.
So is this in conjunction with the $500 a day, or is this,
They've reduced the fine by about 300 times.
okay, so
They
this
could have fined us up to $500 a day. They are fining us $6,000 for a year. And if we aren't in compliant, we probably, from what I read from the letter, is we could expect monthly fines going forward.
makes sense. I just wanted to get the actual facts. Everybody else here that we are $6,000 fine in total, as opposed to $190,000. So dollars is the
They've
final.
been very kind to us, yes.
That's amazing.
Well, the objective, I think, of the EQ enforcement process is to, still encourage and get compliance. That is, I think that's the ultimate goal. So it's about, and I think they, if you read the findings document, could have been more punitive. The decisions will get more information that might help bolster the appeal about why they went the way they went on the 6,000, which will, I think, help give a basis for the appeal, as well as, useful decision-making that happened tonight.
Adam, in your experience, when a city appeals a decision like this, is it a black mark against us, or is it something that they routinely deal with? And is this a big negative if we say, oh, we don't want to pay that, and here's why?
If you don't pay it, it's a big negative. Yes, ultimately, if you don't, if we don't aren't successful in the appeal, absolutely, it must be paid. In terms of black mark, overriding desire and mandate, actually, from this desire is compliant, being the state requirement for running a wastewater facility. So, I think what it ends up doing, I don't know if it changes the history of the AO that Councilor Beachhead went through, because they are looking closely already. I think what I've seen in the past is the first violation will have them monitoring more often, more frequently, keeping tabs on staff because they don't want it to happen again. So, I think we're already in a fairly serious, dialogue and discussion with them, and I hope that filing an appeal and keeping this liaison thing going, keeping staff contact, keeping Dan coordinated with the city manager's office, with you all of that, I hope would be beneficial for an appeal and beyond, to stay out of that line in the future.
So this is something that happens. It's not, wouldn't be an anomaly, and they view us negative.
He's asking is, are they going to look at us worse if we appeal it to just pay the fine? Or does everybody appeal it? Do you know this?
It depends on the situation each time. If there depends on what caused the fine, and I haven't been involved in Ashland. We had one that was storm related. There were some extenuating circumstances. I think there was a nominal fine with a remedial action requested, and the wastewater plant operators completely agreed with that because it was a solution to something that they didn't want to see happen either. So, oftentimes the compliance efforts and what comes of them after the appeal, the fine is zero or the fine is something. There is also
usually some additional required follow-up. Now, I don't know if it's going to strengthen what's already in the MAO, but we would clearly find that out.
Anyone else, council?
If just to get clarity of council direction, that you are authorizing the city manager to schedule and submit an appeal.
I would like to know what grounds you think we could appeal it on.
Is that to city staff or is that to council? Well, I think there are some baseline items of turnover. Those are relatively administrative and maybe looked at as benign to DEQ, saying that doesn't matter. You've got to get your ducks in a row anyway. But I think there are some things that the backdrop that could matter. I think the decision moving forward tonight, the council just made, I think that is definitely something, for the appeal. I think that decisions and forward progress to compliance. My question is, this council has inherited from prior regimes all this, and it's on our shoulders now. That in itself is ground. So we can't talk to them and say, we inherited this, we're trying to fix it. Yeah, that's exactly the take, and again, it depends on who the arbiter is, who's reviewing it, to say, yeah, that's all well and good, but look at the dates, look at, and that's the, that's the thing. And then from an attorney kind of standpoint, our objective is to say, yeah, and look at the other issues that the community and the local government structure had during those times. I'm not sitting here telling you that I have a foolproof way to be successful in an appeal, but I think it does, my opinion is it does behoove us to schedule an appeal, go through it, learn something, even if we lose the appeal and pay the full 6,000. I think it's, I think you learn something going through it, and it will be valuable to council and the staff moving forward.
I want to make a motion to file for the appeal and to move forward, keeping a lien in between the city of Gold Hill and the DEQ.
It's his motion. Would you repeat your motion, please?
Does that need to be taken out?
No, I don't necessarily think so. I think that could be a component of the appeal document itself, if that's what you meant by that, because
That
I
is
do
what I
think,
meant by that.
because I do think that's
Because
valuable
would
that
keep
that
us
is.
in
gonna-
standing with the
Right.
DEQ.
that
So
could
I'd
be
like
an-
to keep it as it stands.
Yeah, I think that the motion, if not to put words in your mouth, but just a authorization for the city manager to and file an appeal.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Any conversation? I think it's regardless of the outcome of the appeal, we obviously come in, we comply with the. That's what we want to hear from this, is we're not blowing this off. And I think it could be argued that there was a pandemic that shut down City Hall for 2 years, completely fine. We had wildfires the last 2 years, where we have focused our attention on not going the way of talent and teams. Now, in the long-term scheme of things, it's been a lot of years. But I think it doesn't hurt for us to articulate this rationale. And oh, by the way, in the last 4 years that we've all here, we've had 4 managers. So we've lost the continuity of the paid employee that's charged managing these things. So I think that would be the basis of our appeal, and we'll certainly comply with whatever.
Moved and seconded.
In second, roll call.
All right, Michelle? Wilson?
Yes.
Newstead? Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1. Reports from counselors. Anyone have anything to add? Activity you've undertaken on behalf of the City of Gold Hill?
Well, I'm still operating on that. We have another new city manager that I don't want to almost anything on, but I've got a little project I've been working on, and we'll have copies of my cliff notes of it for council and city manager. How about at the next meeting?
Any hints for an agenda item, or is it going to be under council?
I'm going to keep it a secret until I throw it out.
Okay.
Else? City may have been hearing from you a lot tonight. Do you have anything else to add in addition to our agenda items and the other background items that you give us?
Sure. Quite a few things. So maybe I'll just give a few, just as an intro to know each other. Born in Eugene, grew up in Pendleton, and stayed down for 30 some years. Spent my whole career with the city of Ashland started as a temp, entry 10 key. I was the manual data migration machine, and zigzagged up through back and forth through the org chart and finished there as a city manager. Started here for you all about a week and a half ago. The plan being to stay here through of the recruitment process for the permanent position. That process, we actually meeting today, some stakeholders and kind of peer professionals went through the semifinalist candidates, and now the executive committee will decide how many of the finalists move on to finalist process that will take place on the October. So that's a bit, that's just kind of the chronology and how long I'll be here with you all. It's been really exciting and fun to dive in and see what was us, what needs to get done. Just kind of, I think I've talked with some of you. My plan is to kind of put things into 3 different buckets. The first bucket is kind of short-term things I can actually get done, cross off the list, emergency type items, quick hitters. Middle, the second bucket is things I can get back on track, help you all get back on track or continue on track, but we'll live on past the time I'm here. And the third bucket are things I know the timeline just not happen, and I will be in documentation mode. Things I probably won't be able to get my fingers on, but I'll try and document, form some background materials, potentially make a recommendation if we get far enough along on that. But if I don't know enough, I'm not going to make a recommendation. But that's kind of how I foresee taking in all of the and organizing things that are coming. I'll just go through a bullet list of things that we've hit on, because I think it's kind of handy for you all that we are turning away, and Dee and Kim as well. All of these things that I'm talking about, it's not just me. It's the team and Tony and Rod as well. First off, awesome and really fun to get me oriented to what's going on and physically cruising around into all the city facilities. We restored several policies that expired. Pretty critical administrative operational things. Those have been 2 of the 4 kind of essential ones and restored in place, which was say important. We are working still on Dee and Kim, especially on our software issues. The municipal software is not a system I'm super familiar with, nor probably are many. It's a smaller system. So that's a challenge right now. That includes the financials, payroll, all of that, but especially acute and problematic in the early billing area. We're having some challenges, as probably all have heard, with getting bills accurate, back accurate on the monthly readings. There was some averaging that went on prior, which caused some real fluctuations that will hopefully, will normalize and get corrected, as well as getting some meters out there that aren't in the system into the system. So there's some revenue issues associated with that, and there's some really, not so great custody with that. We had a great, Councilor Beachite was a part of it. We had a great initial meeting on the Powerhouse grant project. A lot of really impressive heavy hitters from DEQ, EPA, several other Business Oregon, a lot of people looking at alternatives for what possibly the city would want to do with the powerhouse site. Super great. That was mostly an orientation meeting. There'll be a time on the future council meeting where we'll have a little more meat on the bones on that, which I just was exciting. I thought it was really. Talked about the city manager candidate process. As you see, new audiovisual. Marvin, thankfully, we're in here the past several days trying to get this organized. We will get it sorted out. We'll have some better organization to it all next time. I think we'll have stands, so we won't have to set the distance. So things bear with us, but it's going to be an improvement. I know it's going to be an improvement. Along with that, working with Marvin on the website to be able to have staff post things, so we're not as crazy on last minute postings. We want to get all of this material, everything was talked about today. We want to get it on the website. We want to get on the website even before that Friday due date. We'll hopefully work through some kind of little administrative stuff on agendas, minutes. Dee is now taking minutes. That'll be a new agenda item starting next month to approve the previous week or previous meeting's minutes. Just hopefully kind of incrementally clean up and improve the packet process. Working on coming in at least trying. I think I'll be able to do this the first, maybe just once while I'm here, is a quarterly financial report. We're going to try and we'll establish monthly financial reports for internal operations. If council would prefer to have monthlies here as well, we can do that. I'm accustomed to having quarterly reports reviewed by council to look at longer trends, and the month report's going to be used for management analysts, but I'm open to discussion on that. With Candu, and they want to, they're talking about the Gold Hill project, and like to be on a council agenda either the next meeting or the meeting after to give council an update on the lineup and the festivities. There's some staff coordination that we're working on, and Tony and I will be coordinating that with the Candu folks. And the last bit is one that I think is really important to make sure we're all aware of is having a meeting with the auditor coming up soon from Valley Financial to finish up the 2021 audit. That has not been completed, so that's late. I don't know right now what pieces. My hunch is they're not financial report chunks. They're more of the auxiliary pieces that go along with an audit, but I don't have that for sure yet. But we need to wrap that one up, and the last fiscal year 2022 that audit needs to start so that meeting with the auditor will be both those things. How do we finish up last one, and let's kick off and through this one, and I think that will be very challenging for staff with a lot of the turnover and just checking the record keeping. But that is kind of a rundown of my kind of first week and a half, and thank you all. I'm excited to be here. It's fun to meet you all and work through these things.
And that's what 20 years in public management sounds like. We're very lucky that he's really got the background in the financial area coming up to the accounting department. It's huge for us to hear that it's being addressed. Thank you, Al. Any other questions for our new interim city manager?
I don't have a question for Adam, but I did want to just, I don't think we ever thanked him. I want to say thank you to Marvin for volunteering all the time that he volunteers to do all this stuff. We don't pay him, but he continues to take care of our audio stuff, get our stuff up, and stuff at every meeting, and I just think that we owe him a big thing. A long time.
Good of the order. With nothing there, this meeting's adjourned.